If you are a runner who wants to gain speed, build strength, or go longer and gain endurance, then you need to be running hills. But if you're like me and live somewhere where there's not a ton of hills, you gotta go find one. So let's go. As we're on our way to the hill, let's talk about why hills are important. Number one, they help build strength at a low impact. So it takes a lot of power to go uphill. And generally when we're running flat, we land with 2 to 3 times our body weight on the ground. So like what I'm doing right now. But when we go up the hill, it's less impactful. We're not landing with our full body weight. So you're gonna be able to, I know it sounds crazy, recover just a little bit more quickly. But as we know, what goes up must come down. Those downhills are adding back in that impact if we are running down the hill. And that means we are less prone to overall injuries from impact. All that additional power our body is using to get up that hill is going to build our body better, and we're going to have a more powerful stride. So whether you're training for a 5K or a 50K, that additional power you have in your stride is going to make you more of an efficient runner, keeping that run form in check, which once again leads to less injuries. I think this is too small of a hill. We're gonna keep looking. It's much too early for that. It's not quite fall, people, not quite fall. Okay, I think I found one. It's gonna be a shorty, but a goodie. All right, this is perfect. So I found this nice grassy knoll here. So if you are worried about impact, finding something like this is definitely gonna help absorb that impact going on something softer like grass or the trail as opposed to the road. I'm gonna move my body up the hill and we can chat up here. All right, now that we're here, let's talk about how we get up the hill. Let's talk about hill running form. A lot of times we, avoid hills because it's an obstacle and we don't want to deal with it. So we attack it incorrectly. So how do we do that? First, let's start with the feet, work our way up. Let's talk about cadence. Cadence is that foot turnover speed. As you're making your way up the hill, you want to maintain a similar cadence that you do while you're running flat. Now that cadence is probably going to feel a little too fast, especially if you're new to running hills, but that's going to be the most efficient way to get up the hill. And that's generally for those endurance runners. You want to keep that similar cadence. If you're practicing for a shorter, faster event, your cadence is going to speed up a little bit and you're definitely going to want to work on that faster turnover going up the hill. Your upper body posture and your core is really important when we are attacking a hill. And these form tips, just a little FYI, are going to be geared more towards those runnable hills, right? I'm not really talking about a hill that's like at a 45% grade where you have to power hike and you're almost on your hands and knees trying to crawl up this thing. These are going to be hills that we are typically going to experience on the road and some of those easier fire road, flatter trails that you see. We want to make sure, we'll start with the head because your head's going to kind of determine where everything else goes. If I'm sitting here and my gaze is up, my chin's going to be up, that leaves room for my chest to be up. And if my chest is up, I can get a bigger, deeper breath. Once my head goes down, what my shoulders want to do is come in, and now I'm crushing everything together. So I can't get a nice full deep breath through my chest and into the stomach. So if I can keep my head and my gaze up, everything is going to follow, but not all the time. So we want to make sure that we are trying to keep that chest nice and proud, and we're going to be using our arms a lot more. It's going to be really exaggerated, pushing our elbows behind us. We're not super worried about driving them in front, but driving them way behind us to help use that momentum to get us up the hill. And it might feel really funny at first, really driving those elbows back behind you, but your arms can be your biggest asset to you going up the hill. Now, if you're using hills as intervals in your training, you want to look for something that's at about a 5 to 10% grade. And your intervals are going to be anywhere from about 10 seconds to around a minute. Once again, depending on what distance that you're training for. Now, there's a lot of different ways that you can figure out the grade of the hill, right? It's kind of hard. If you're on a treadmill, that's perfect because all you have to do is press a button and it's right there. Personally, I use Strava. And I go to that hill and I see if there's a segment on the hill and it'll just tell me the grade right there. There are definitely apps out there you can definitely look up on your phone and it'll tell you the exact grade of the hill. You can like kind of use it as like the camera, it'll tell the angle of it. But I just like to use Strava because most of the little hills around here have some kind of a segment on them. So that's just easiest for me. Once again, depending on the distance you're training for, you want to aim for about 6 to 10 intervals that you're doing at a time. It's so hard to get an accurate speed on these hills. I really want you to go off of effort, right? So how hard am I working? And I actually made a video, it's on our channel. It can tell you all about your different RPEs, 1 through 10. We like to use a scale of how hard are you working, 1 to 10. 10 is like all out, that's like my 10 to 30 second range. I don't have any more than that. And 1 is like what I'm doing right now, or, you know, sleeping. So as you're doing the interval, right, we're gonna give it that good effort going up the hill. But once again, what goes up must come down. And in many races, if you're going uphill, there's gonna be a downhill somewhere in there. And that's where most runners get hurt, is that downhill, right? We're tired, we just got uphill, you know, we're kind of letting our body flow. And what happens is either we're gonna trip and fall, or we're just not bracing ourselves enough, and we're really just absorbing too much impact as we go down the hill. So 2 things you can do here. 1, move to this grassier knoll here where it's going to be a little less impact on the body. 2 is really concentrating on that form, trying to be a little bit lighter on your feet as you go down, right? Once again, not trying to hunch over and look at your feet. And number 3 is going to be just walking down the hill, giving yourself that rest and recovery. I hesitate to say that. It's really good for making sure that we're able to recover enough and get ourselves a nice good long recovery so that we can really practice going hard up those hills. But we're gonna have to run downhill in those longer races and the shorter races too. So it is good to practice it. I personally just like to practice it on my longer runs, making sure that I'm hitting some hills in there because I'm keeping it at a nice effort and I'm not really taxed at the top of these hills, and I'm not wearing myself out going back downhill. There's another thing you can do. Run up the hill, have a break at the top, and then jog back down, and then immediately come back up and run at the hill. So you're taking a rest at the top of the hill rather than at the bottom. So all this talk about hills, it's time to actually do some. I am less than 3 weeks out from my marathon, so I'm gonna use this hill here, and I'm gonna do about 6 to 8 reps, kind of depending how I feel. I'm gonna use a medium effort here. All the work is done. I've done what I can for this marathon training, and I'm in my taper. So I'm just using this to get a little bit of leg turnover speed without putting too much impact on my body. So let's do these. Okay, I'm gonna take a little break, but before I finish my workout, I wanted to say, look, I know it can be challenging to find a hill. It's not always the easiest thing. They're not always in the safest of places, you know. Sometimes you don't want to leave the house when it gets cold or it's too dark. So I actually made a workout just for those people who, you know, don't want to get to the hill, but you still have a hillier race or want to build those legs for stronger uphill running. So check out this video coming up next. Got a nice strength training routine that you can do anywhere, weights, no weights, whatever you want to do. But hey, great video, check it out, and I'm gonna keep running some hills.